Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, Two-Face here is going to get a repot. Last year, one of the members of the Minnesota Bonsai Society, who has ties to a nursery in Michigan, had a whole bunch of Kingsville Boxwoods that were available for us to buy. She took a whole bunch home with her, and she started to offer them to the club. And so I picked up a whole bunch of them, and I put a couple into bigger pots in the summertime, but just let them all just kind of grow for that first year. Yeah, so we've got the Kingsville here, and we're going to put this one into a square pot today. I talked to my good friend up in central Minnesota recently on my podcast, Up North Bonsai, and Tim Matheway was talking about boxwoods. It's one of his favorite trees to work on, and he's won Best in Show a couple of times at the Minnesota State Fair Bonsai Show that the Minnesota Bonsai Society puts on. So he's one of our members who has over 30 years experience, and he just loves the boxwoods, and he just thinks they're a great tree for everybody to have. Now, typically boxwoods are very slow growers. So you're not going to get this massive tree overnight by any stretch compared to some other trees that just shoot out tons of growth every year, like your Japanese maples, Chinese elm. They push out a lot of new growth every year. Your deciduous trees, broadleaf deciduous, certainly putting on a lot of growth. But this one, what's interesting about the boxwoods in my experience so far is how much root production they have. They just can throw out a ton of roots, which is so bizarre to me that they throw out so many roots and they don't have all this big foliage growth up top that would support the huge thick root structure down below. So I find that very interesting. So there must be some things going on there with this species that, of course, I'm unaware of, not being a horticulturist by any means. I just find that super fascinating because when I've taken some of my boxwoods and gone to repot them in just that 2-year time frame or so, blown away at some of the root structures that I've seen so far. I have a boxwood that I'm going to put into a planting, I think, this year, a project coming up for this summer, and I'm very curious to see the root structure on that, just because I think it was repotted maybe 2 years ago, and I'm going to put it into a kind of a planting on a rock, or on a what's the word I'm looking at? A slab, not like a root over rock, but a slab. That idea coming up, and I'll talk about that later on this spring and summer. So we are on the second weekend of March. March Madness continues with our hopefully repot season to kick in pretty soon here. This will be my first repot of the season. Other than my tropicals that I've been doing out here in the room, this came from my cold frame out at the cabin. And so this was in this size pot here. So this is about a 6, I believe. A little, or no, not a 6. I guess I don't remember what the name of size of that pot is. 6 inches, maybe a 6-inch pot. And so it's March, and one of the things that Tim said on the interview, Up North Bonsai, check it out. Check out the podcast, available on Apple Podcasts. You can also go to my website, bonsaiacres.com, and find it there. So I'll put a link and all that good stuff here in the description. But Tim talked about how you can repot a boxwood almost any time of the year, and you can have decent success. Now, this is, like I said, the second weekend in March. Things are starting to wake up in the cold frame. I do have some trees leafing out. As I showed a couple of weeks ago in an episode, I have my Siberian elm forest. One of the 3 has completely leafed out, and it's got small leaves on every single tree, and not just one leaf, but multiple leaves. So things are starting to wake up. Now, I can't really see any buds shooting out here on the boxwood. This isn't going to shoot any new growth for quite some time. But since I have a protected cold frame, and this cold frame will start to average warmer temperatures now, we just hit daylight savings, which just means that, we lose an hour of sleep, that's about it. But for the trees, the daylight is getting longer, so there is that to be considered. My cabin cold frame out there is going to slowly warm up, and the heater won't even probably be going on much. We're talking about highs in the 50s this week. We might get into the mid to upper 50s by the middle of this week. So that cold frame, which acts as a semi-greenhouse, just semi, because there are 2 windows and a window in the door. And so it warms up in there pretty good. So I bet you the peak of that cold frame is going to be quite warm this week. We might even top off on the GoV thermometer. We might hit 60 this week. I would not put it past the cold frame to get to 60. So my goal today is to save this tree, because I called it two-faced for a reason. We have some death going on here, so I'm not sure if that got burnt out in the cold frame. This was a little exposed here from the pot it was in. It probably could have used an up pot or some kind of cleanup. Look at the roots on this structure. It could have used some help probably last year when I first got it. I probably should have taken a peek at it, seen what the roots were like, and gone ahead and done something with it. But I just let it grow in my yard for the whole season, barely touched. I did do a little pruning at the bottom so I could water this thing easier. I believe I showed that on a video back as we were doing fall preparations. Incidentally, as you can tell, if you wanted to do a root over rock with a boxwood, look at how long all these roots are. I could put this over a rock right now and we could have a root over rod structure if there's enough roots to support it. But the problem is it's a little weak up top, so I don't know where all of these roots are coming from and if it would be a sturdy enough root over rock. But that's what we're here to do, is to find out and to dig out all this tangled mess of root structure here. And this is one tangled mess. There is a boatload of roots here. So my goal is to get it into this pot, trim up some of the roots here, get some nice bonsai soil in there so we have a nice exchange of air and water. We always are striving for that balance of water and oxygen. If you watch enough of Ryan Neal out there in Portland with Bonsai Live, Bonsai Mirai Live, talks a lot about the balance of water and oxygen, and just most professionals do, of course. You really need that balance. Some of the videos I've watched with him, I just hear him say it so much. We also have the privilege of having Peter T at the Fundamentals group of Minnesota Bonsai Society, learning a ton of great things from him. And of course, the balance of oxygen and water in your bonsai pot is crucial for the health of your tree. So we're going to go ahead and keep working on this. This needs to go in there. Look at that. It's not deep enough of a pot. But we will be cutting off a good chunk of these roots, of course, to make that fit. If I do consider putting this root over rock, I might grab a little bit bigger and deeper pot then and bury some of these roots. But I don't really have a good rock structure here that I know of. I think most of my rocks now have been used either on the bonsai pot tank. I have some other big rocks that are maybe just too big. Or maybe you just put it over a big rock and let it grow into that tree or into that rock. So this particular tree has a lot of gnarliness on the base. If you can see right in there, a lot of roots curling all over each other and just a little bit snarly and kind of a tangled mess. And we are going to see if we can untangle it here. As I continue to work through the tree here, there is just a ton of roots, as you've been able to see. And I don't believe I'm going to do a root over rock here, so I'm not worried about saving all these long roots. These are going to have to get shorter, and we're going to have to spread them out in a bonsai pot and try to work for more radial roots and set the stage for the future of this bonsai. As I get closer to the top, I want to be careful what I cut off, because I do have the death on the one side, so I want to make sure that I'm not cutting off all the live roots. If I can tell where the path of the root goes, to get some indication of maybe where the strength of this tree is coming from and where the weaker part is. We have enough of the roots gone to leave everything intact and put into this pot should we choose to do that right now. So now I'm going to go back to my root rake here a little bit, and I want to see how these are going to spread out. Maybe I'll just keep using the chopstick for a little bit longer here. So here's a tangled root way out here. So a lot of roots going a lot of different directions on here. I have one root right here sticking up high on the trunk. I'm just going to cut that one off. And that's all tucked down and buried in there. So that gives me just a little bit more trunk to be exposed a little bit higher. Yeah, this is still a complete tangled mess here. Kingsville are definitely a little bit more popular and sought after in the boxwood world. They have really nice small leaves. And one thing I learned about the boxwood in the last year or so from Tim and from some of the other folks in the Minnesota Bonsai Society is how, you know, these are often in the metro area, the upper Midwest. Boxwoods are hedges. And they're used as a hedge around people's driveways or yards or you know, between your yard and mine, that kind of thing. And they're oftentimes put in direct sun, and they can burn out real easily. So you don't necessarily want to have your boxwood in full sun. And like I've learned in the last year through the Peter T workshop, and I think I've mentioned this in a couple of episodes before, that, you know, shade cloth in Minnesota is not a bad thing to invest in, because if you have a really, really sunny yard, there's just a lot of trees out there that, even though they love the warmth and the sun, they just, sometimes we just need to give them a little shade, to give them a little bit of a break. And they can all have some struggles if they have that much sun. And there are other people that say that this part of the country we would never have to shade cloth. Your trees should be fine if they're healthy. Okay, so I have a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So I have a root right here that curls under this curly root, which has quite the gnarly look to it. This goes down more radially. This one crosses over way over there. It's a nice thick root, but I have a lot of roots going this way, so this tree does kind of lean this way and it shoots that way. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to first take off the dead limbs that I can tell are dead, and see what we have left for a tree here. Now this was half and half. So my pruning decisions right now are just on the burnt out leaves. So thinning out the branches a little bit so we can let the sun get in here as we get ready to put this out. By golly, there could almost be some new growth in here. There's a little branch in here that shows just a little bit of youngness to it and suppleness. That almost could be a new shoot trying to reach for the sun in the plant room. So you can see the fun gnarliness of this tree from that side. Got some neat movement there. And I just took out some of the dead stuff there, and that's going to make this side look a little sparse. So we're just trying to save this tree. We're going to hopefully give it a new life here. When this thing sprouts up to life here, hopefully all the energy will go to the living veins and the living tissues in here, and we'll have a fun tree to work on here in the future. So there's still some living tissue, it looks like, on this side. So erring on the side of caution, do I leave some of these branches on here in hopes that something comes back to life? I don't think I will. I think I'm going to cut that off, because then all the growth goes to the right side, left side for you. Right side for you, left side for me. and we can manipulate this in the pot to show some nice curve here to it. So we have that kind of bend, and the tree is growing at us here. It curves around and comes at us, but then you don't see the big scar. We can try to flatten out some of these roots and work on the roots in the future a little bit more. We'll narrow this down a little bit today and clean some of this up. So we're saving a little boxwood. Gonna give it a fresh new home. And hope that it enjoys life. Got a few brown tips on here still in a couple areas. And then we'll see if we can put this thing in a bonsai pot here. Of course, one of the options I have is to put it right back into some soil. But as I've joked about often on the channel, I have a pretty decent green thumb with my bonsai soil. When I have houseplants, I tend to neglect those, or not. I just don't do as well with the houseplants in typical soil. So there we go. So I have a pretty big pot. This is big enough to let a lot of growth in here. The roots have a lot of room to grow in there. So we'll go ahead and we'll put a layer, a layer of real coarse bonsai soil on the bottom for some good drainage. This is one of those pots that have the mesh built right in. So just a good training pot. We'll see what this can do in this pot here. And so then I have to figure out how I'm going to kind of place this in here. And I'm probably going to trim off a few more of these longer roots. See if I can spread some stuff out more radially. That is really hard for me to say, isn't it? All right, now we'll get a mound of the bigger soil. Or I should say the medium soil. And then I'll take a look at some of these roots and see which ones I want to maybe take off that are not going to really aid into the future design of this tree. We got these roots right here growing straight up. So let me take that one off. This one's growing straight up. Take that one off. So I got this one curling way down underneath and below. And circles in this tangled mess over here. There we go. Now we're untangling some of this. There we go. So I'm trying not to break all these roots, but I do have to untangle some of these because they're just going to wreak havoc down the road. But I want to make sure this thing stays alive, so I don't want to do anything too drastic to it right now. Some of these still get really long and windy. So there we've got some fun movement of the trunk, and we've got all these fun roots in the back. I am going to take out that one that's just crossing back here, that underneath here. That a lot of roots taken out there, but the one underneath it's going to be a whole lot better. And again, if we can straighten these out over time. So this one right here can thicken up right there, and then we can cut the one below that off. We've got two right here. They're kind of wiggly. If I kind of can move them around a little bit. We need another mound of dirt in here. Dirt, how dare I? Bonsai soil. Try to spread some of this out. think that's all I want to do for cleanup on this right here. I don't want to get rid of any more roots because we took a lot of roots off. So I've kind of shimmied it down into the soil a little bit, and now we can put our finishing touches on the top. We're going to probably need just a little bit of something heavy in here, possibly. You know, these roots were bent all over the place, and they were kind of nice little hollow section in the middle, so I do want to make sure that I shimmy some of this soil down here. Yeah, as I tamp it down and wiggle it down there, we're getting soil in there. It's actually making the tree a little bit more solid in there too. So I didn't put this particular tree trunk in the perfect place in the pot, but again, this is all about survival at time and a really tiny tree that I was just saving from possible damage. So as you look at the tree from that side, it's a little bit back in the pot. There you can see how far back it is. I'm not too concerned about that. That doesn't even look like a bad tree right there. Once, of course, I got the cut a little dirty there with dirt, but we let this thing grow up and see what happens. Maybe this side comes completely off someday. We don't know what this is going to be. This is just survival mode, right? So we're going to go ahead and give this some water, and then we're going to put it back out in the cold frame. And we're going to put it back out in the cabin cold frame because that cabin cold frame will have the most warmth and heat and sun, and so the temperature is going to be waking these roots up even more than some of the roots are right now. So that is really good for us to have that slow waking up, and then of course eventually we'll get this thing outside. So give me a little bit of, I could say that fast 3 times. Let me get my water squirter, my wand, and we'll give this thing a little water here. So the saving of a boxwood, as we get ready for our repotting season in the spring here, I got the boxwood out of the cold frame. It was a really good temperature. The sun is out, so I left the door open for a little while to let that fresh air in there. And we've got some cotoneasters that are starting to wake up. I'll take my camera out there and we'll show you what's going on as we put this back out there. It's trimmed up just a little bit after we gave it some water. It is ready to go out into the cold frame. So let's get this back out there. I'll bring the camera this time so you can see kind of the trees that are starting to wake up, which makes me a little nervous, but I think with the temps in the 50s and lows hovering around the freezing point in the next week or so, we could be turning a quarter pretty soon here. We'll have to be starting that bonsai shuffle awful soon. Let's head outside and take a check of the cabin cold frame. We're heading out to the cabin cold frame. The sun is out. We're at the 40-degree mark. Snow is good and sticky. And we're gonna go see what life is brewing inside the cold frame. So let's open her up and get this boxwood in there and check things out. Here we are inside the cabin cold frame. Got the big old boxwood I picked up last year sitting in the corner. And look at that. The weeping willows have leafed out. They are ready to come outside. Got a couple of barberries in the cabin cold frame, and the one back there has got some itty bitty leaves on there. Let's see if I can zoom up on that just a little bit. Yeah, we got some life to the bayberries, or the barberries. There's another one of my boxwoods back there that I did put into a new pot last year, not a bonsai pot, but it was suffering, had to do some fixing up there. Look at my Japanese quince. What's going on with that? Huh? Look what's right next to it. The cotoneaster. Look at all those cute little leaves. It's only March the 13th. What's going on? Look at this cotoneaster. Oh boy, we want spring to be here. There's another boxwood back in the corner. That's not the Kingsville variety, but that one's ready to just explode. It's been looking real great color all winter long. And I got in a really shallow pot here. And when I take that thing out for that project I was talking about, that's just going to have a boatload of roots in there. I just can't wait. There's a little bud there on the red twig dogwood. There we go. They're wanting to be coming alive. Here's another cotoneaster. That one's got some life to it. The Japanese garden juniper. Gets a little bit of this sun here in the afternoon, and it's starting to really look pretty. It doesn't have any of that older, not older, but winter, kind of that winter color on an evergreen, where you get that kind of bronzy look, or that darker kind of, there's almost a red brownish color to some of the cedars and the thujas, and some of the junipers as well kind of get into an interesting color, just greening up and loving. But look at that window coming, shining light right into the plant room. And then the jumbo, let's pull back a little bit here, the jumbo Acer palmatum here, the Japanese maple. We got a little bit of buds, nothing pushing yet. There's some buds that want to push right there. We got some buds that want to push there. This is the tree that I think I'm going to curl around my great big long branches there. I'm going to curl around and do an approach or a thread graft later on this year. We're going to try to get an approach graft going. That's only going to be in the next couple of weeks, because we got to do that before the buds do push out in order to push it through the hole. And you can see with these buds, they're already pretty big. So I might end up having to do an approach graft, which will be along one of these sides here, or if I can drill a hole in there soon enough and get the thread graft. So that might be in the next couple weeks here. And then we got the Korean fir over there, loving life. I could probably bring that one outside pretty soon here as we start getting to freezing at night. Just at freezing, it'll slowly wake up. We got the black pussy willow down here that a lot of branches have been bumped as I've gone in and out of the plant room here, or the cold frame. I'm hoping I didn't kill off too many branches here, so I can't wait to see that pussy willow come back to life. So there's the tree from today. We've got our boxwood. So we're going to go ahead and put this right here. It's going to sit right there, right in there for now. Awesome. So the trees are looking good in here. It's warm, got some fresh air with the open doors and windows, and yeah, everything wants spring to be here right now, and so do all of us, right? Fantastic. Another look at that juniper here. The green color, the tips look like they're just itching to just start to elongate. All the back budding that we had on last year is green. This did really good this winter here in the cold frame. So can't wait to bring this out real soon. Oh, this is absolutely fantastic. So we got one of the many up-and-coming repots taken care of with the boxwood there. The trees are looking good. We have a lot of trees that are trying to push out some growth, so we'll just have to monitor them really, really closely and make sure they don't start to wilt away or anything. I don't want to bring them into my plant room, because then that would really mess up with them. So we just got to leave them in here, and it won't go below freezing in here. And as the temps get into the 50s in the afternoon, I can just open this thing up, let some fresh air in there, and then make sure that we keep it warmer at night so things don't freeze off with those new buds. And we'll be in good shape. I think I'm just going to kick back and stay out of here for a while. So hey, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you very, very soon in the next one. It's time for some vitamin D. You know, I could get a lawn chair out here.